and also quite a lot of bumps on the road, but very often the citizens are really motivated to continue, and we find ways to facilitate them. So, some insights we've had during this approach. For citizens, they don't really have a preference for certain providers. We found this when in one of the questionnaires we did, we had a lot of complaints about the fact that they could only choose between different providers. And there was no option to choose for no preference. So we included that in the options, and at the end, that option was voted most for, which is very interesting. The fact that we engage citizens in the process, and we ask them what they think are good locations. Also, for us, it worked out a good way because there's less not in my backyard happening. We don't get a lot of complaints. Yeah, I'm gonna go fasten up my. Okay, what is thinking very interesting here to say? Yeah, so one of the other results regarding the providers, the mobility providers, is that as a result you'll have a lot of different providers in different hubs. This is quite chaotic, and even, you know, I just mentioned people don't really have a preference for certain providers, so it doesn't make sense for them. And also the fact that we worked with a station-based and a free-floating concept didn't work out very well, because very often the cars were not there, or the bikes weren't used as often. This is something we also discussed during the opening, and we hope we will explore more into in the future. Some quotes here. I'm going to skip this one, but I just want to say that it's really nice to hear from citizens what they really think about hubs and how they think it would fit in their neighborhood. And this is something we always look into. Never estimate what people know about their own neighborhood and what their ideas are. And very often they have a lot of good ideas. Something about our communication approach. What we also did is we experimented with different frames, which we put into different ads, targeting people in different areas where the hubs were placed. We tested, does the red button bring you back? Yeah, it does, okay. So we tested 6 different frames. The first one was the informative tone, which is very factual. The self-efficacy means that there's a great chance that you will succeed. The hedonic frame is that it's fun to share. The gain frame is that it is cost reductive. Normative is that it's environment friendly, that you should do it because it's good for the environment. And lastly, the social frame tells you what other people do and what they think, so kind of stimulates you to do the same. And the social game, the social frame, worked quite well in 6 neighborhoods together with the self-efficacy. So those are the frames we now experiment further with during a campaign that we just started in cooperation with different providers. So we combined online and offline methods, communication methods, offline by organizing tryout days, inviting people to come and try out different modes of transport, such as a cargo bike, which is often quite a new mode of transport for people. What we also always try to do is use animation picture because people really don't know what a hub is, so you have to give them an idea. It also helped us in, presenting our ideas, our plans for our colleagues. And I would like to finish with our toolbox, which we have created. This is a step-by-step guide on how to implement your own hub. We hope that this will offer an interesting resource for cities that are also working on this team. And lastly, what else? Well, currently the hub strategy is being developed. hopefully in the following years we have strategically decided on what really works and what not. So this is something that is currently being developed, inspired also partly by what we did during the eHUBS project. Also, new policy and legislation is being written on shared mobility and hubs. Thirdly, standardization and digitalization is further being explored. Tomorrow, a session will be given by Impact and my colleagues about the digital dimension of eHUBS. If you're interested in this team, you could go to that session. And lastly, further stimulate the use of shared mobility by, among else, doing a new campaign right now. And that was it. Thank you. Have I been on time? Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Banu. Are there any burning questions for Banu, for clarification, or you're curious about some further details? Yes?
Very interesting presentation and experience in Amsterdam. I'm curious about the bottom-up approaches, the stimulating initiatives, neighborhood initiatives. Did you just stimulate the people who were already interested in setting up something, or did you also actively look into, okay, how can we involve other types of groups, people who might be able to actually benefit much more maybe from cheaper mobility?
Good question. In the beginning we did focus only on bottom-up initiatives, but then we realized, well, this isn't really a diverse group. Maybe we should look more into it. And then we came across a neighborhood in the north of Amsterdam, which is a housing project for status holders, students, and young professionals. We did also a bottom-up initiative with them. And we have learned that for these groups of people, the mobility providers or the mobility options were just too pricey. They could not afford it, and this is also why we see that the electric bikes are just not that interesting, because they very often have their own bike, which is quite a cheap mode of transport. And so we tried to do that, and in another neighborhood we tried to do that as well, but we didn't really it was very difficult to find people who would be the car tracker. I'm not sure what the front runner for the initiative, so that took us quite a lot of time. So in the end we decided to do the commercial approach, just by sending out flyers, by organizing a tryout day in the city center of that district, and that helped us to meet people that we would not meet otherwise. Yeah.
Any further questions? Yes.
Yes, I was wondering how you are coping with if providers are always willing to provide their services at every hub, or how are you coping with them? How you are establishing a long-term relationship with them?
Yeah. So the providers are quite willing to experiment with us. This is also what they have planned with. We make an agreement with them, and they agree that they offer their services, but if it's not going well, they are allowed to remove their vehicles. And this is what happened in one of the districts where there is quite a low demand of shared mobility. This is often also in the outskirts of Amsterdam, where people very often have a car or two maybe, and where there's enough space to have a car. It's quite difficult because, when there are no providers, what will you do? Like, that is now the difficult position we're now in. One of the providers isn't that interested anymore, so now we have to look for other providers who are interested to offer their services there. But within the boundary of this experiment, we aren't really able to do much. So hopefully in the new policy that is being written, but also in the coalition agreement that recently has been decided on by the new council in Amsterdam. This is one of the themes they would like to work on. So hopefully in the future this theme will be broader discussed.
Final question, very short and very short answer.
Thanks for your presentation. As you mentioned, we have the user's perspective and the provider's perspective, and for example, for both of them, it would be station-based for this one or free-floating. My question is, did you find any, did you reach to a conclusion that which mode, like one-way, station-based, one-way, two-way, or free-floating is the best trade-off for the provider and the users?
I think one of the providers we work with is CarGuru. They're also here today on the first floor on the marketplace. What they have for framework is that they work station-based, but they place a lot of hubs, so people are able to go to a nearby hub when the cargo bike in their hub isn't available. I think that is something that also helps the question of, you know, availability. Very often we hear from people that they're just they don't really they're not assured that at any time they want that there will be a cargo bike available, for example. This is something that we that really works so far, and hopefully that could be also included for the other modes of transport. This is still a discussion. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Banu.
You're welcome.
So moving on to the second city, and I won't say the wrong city this time because it's my hometown, city of Leuven. So Hilke Evenepoel, tell us more about what's been going on in Leuven.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Hilke. I'm the project coordinator of the eHUBS project in Leuven. I've been working on the project since about 2 years as well. I'm going to try to give you some lessons learned, so I won't be complete at all, so please give me some more suggestions. It was quite difficult to be selective in choosing the lessons I would present. And I just have to introduce yourself also that the scale of Leuven is completely different of the scale of Amsterdam. I think that's really a good thing to say at the beginning, that Leuven is a city of about 100,000 inhabitants, 50,000 students. In Belgian norms, it's like a medium-sized city with a lot of demand of transport, but it's not at all to be compared with cities like Amsterdam. To give you first a bit the status, where are we now? So within the eHUBS project, we have deployed 40 eHUBs. In terms of modes, electric modes, we have 30 cargos distributed amongst 30 stations in a back-to-one system. We have been experimenting with 40 e-bikes, also delivered by one of our partners, Urbi. By now, we have about 15 electric vehicles on 12 eHUBs. And additionally, since last November, we've added an additional service, which is the parcel lockers. So at about 14 eHUBs, we have also added these parcel lockers. Besides that, in terms of shared mobility services, we have also the normal, regular shared bikes, the public transport bikes, like they are called here, the OV bikes, blue bikes in Belgium, about 130, and they're doing very, very well. And also in terms of normal shared cars or conventional shared cars, we have about 130 normal cars, regular cars, and then the 15 electric cars, just to be a little bit complete. As you can see on the map, we have tried to cover as much as possible the area of Leuven, not only focusing on the center of the city, but also on the sub-municipalities, which are, some of them are also quite densely populated, so quite comparable with the situation of the center. So you can see that, still in the center. It's most of the focus of shared mobility, but also to the peripheral areas we try to have an offer. And I think it's good to say that thanks to a pilot project, you can be able, with these partners, with these providers, to test it out, to try it out in these peripheral areas, because these are not the areas that are mostly desired or wished to operate by providers. I thought it might be interesting to give you a couple of facts, figures of the usage of the shared mobility. So for the e-bike, the ERBs, I just limited to one main figure, which is the number of rides per vehicle per day, and it's indicative because we have got some data, but we don't have that much data yet. So for the ERB, it was about 0.2 rides per vehicle per day, and we've got like 1,500 signups by now. For the cargo, the e-cargo bike, we've got 30 bikes in fleet. We had almost half a ride a day per vehicle, and about 1,200 users accounts, people with an account. Then for the blue bike, you can see that the community is already much bigger. We've got 3,150 almost, and there the number here is 0.4. I have to say that it's also related with COVID. All the numbers are related with COVID. The figure of blue bike before COVID was quite higher. Cambio, which is the main provider in Leuven and in many of the Belgian cities for the shared car, there you see that we have actually the figure of more than one trip per day per car, which is quite nice, and a community of almost more than 3% of the Leuven community, of the Leuven citizens. And then the other provider, which is Partago, the other e-car share, the e-share card provider, it's only a small fleet. It's a cooperative mobility provider, 5 cars, half a ride a day per vehicle, and yeah, about 64 users there. Just to show you very quick a little bit the process of how we did it in Leuven to get these eHUBs deployed, implemented. So first of all, we had a block of location determination, and a bit different than what Amsterdam did. We actually applied a hybrid approach. So we have about 5 eHUBs. They are really developed on a bottom-up way, but most of the eHUBs have been strategically developed. Locations are on these quite evident transport nodes. So that's a bit of difference with Amsterdam. Location determination, then the services determination, then yeah, to get to deployment, and now we're in the implementation phase. So this is like a little bit a theoretical process. As you can see, there's 2 continuous blocks going through. It's yeah, everything about branding, communication, and then the very, very important stakeholder management. I'll just try to give you some lessons learned out of these different blocks, but I just wanted to start to give you a very evident but really important lesson learned is that it's really very good as a city to participate in a pilot, so that we can really test and see how real experience on the ground is, because eHUBs is something that is very complex, very multidisciplinary, and you just experience much more if you just practice it. It's evident, but it's worth it. In terms of location determination, first lesson learned there for us, it's really good to have a good vision, a strong vision as a city, but a flexible vision, because it's a dynamic topic, and you need to change your mind. But even then, I think as a policymaker, it's really good if you know what you want in terms of what is the main goal of the eHUBs. Is it for multimodal trips? Is it more for neighborhood replacement of the core. So it's really good to have that very clear. And I think we experienced that in Leuven. There was already a vision to have a modal shift, but it might be much better to have it more concrete yet. But that's also something that we learn now, and so I think now we can write out a bit more policy about it. As a city, it's really good to know very well your role, and I think it's good. The best role you can play is a facilitator role. You don't have to decide what the mobility providers have to do, but you facilitate it and you try to regulate it so that there's like a good way of understanding. Also in Leuven, I think we were too ambitious in target groups. So we thought that eHUBS would be the solution for the commuters, but also for the visitors, but also for the Leuven citizens. And I think it should be like that in the future, but it's a gradual process. And in a 2 years or 3 years project, you can't get things done for all of these different target groups. So there, I think it's best to focus first on your Leuven citizens. Then you don't have that much stakeholders. And then in the second phase, you get a little bit broader. And then I come to the stakeholders issue. We actually experienced quite some difficulties to get in touch with the main public transport providers, the railway provider, the bus provider, because it's also not that municipal policy. It's going more on a bigger scale, and so that's becoming difficult. So I think it's best to sort out first your municipal strategy, and then when you're now very much and very well what you want, then you can get the stakeholders involved. I told in the beginning that we also developed some eHUBs on a bottom-up methodology, and I think that's really good. I really believe that the uptake is bigger. We don't have that much evidence yet of it, but we still believe it's working better that way. And then the last thing in the location determination is that, in a city like Leuven, some places where you think there's really demand of a eHUB are just too dense and too compact and too difficult to get a eHUB started. So you really have to think, okay, what is my space here, and what could I maybe change in space redesign, because there's lots of things possible, but you need to know the limitations very well from the beginning, because not everything is possible. In terms of services determination, so it's good if you can talk from the beginning with provider before you're gonna really decide the exact location. For instance, in Leuven, we have not done all the works to get the infrastructure working for power supply. Therefore, the providers we have worked with, they've worked with a battery swap system, and we think it's a good thing that we have done it, because some of these locations that we have deployed in eHUB are not doing very well. So, doing all these infrastructure works and then just getting to know that it's not working that well, it's a bit a lot of effort, I think. We have learned a lot about the service level. And we think we are quite demanding in what a provider should level in service. But I think it's worth it to that's one of the lessons learned out of the eHUBS project. And then I think a very important lessons learned is that in the provision of mobility for a city with a scale as Leuven, we think that a subsidy in the first years is really necessary. And then we experienced with the parcel lockers that it might be very good to add some additional service like parcel lockers to attract more people to your place. In terms of deployment, I think it's really good to have a design which is modular, which is flexible, and which can grow, because it's all depending on budgets also. So you start with something basic, and you can just build up when there's more budget available. And then another lesson learned is that in Flanders, in Leuven, we have actually chosen to work with the hop-in branding layout, which is a Flemish regional layout, because we thought it should be recognizable if people are just traveling around in Flanders, that they at least recognize that label. In terms of implementation, there we experienced, for instance, that the ease of use is really very important. User friendliness from the beginning in different ways. So if you come at the eHub and, for instance, the cargo, they've got just step-by-step directions on guidelines on the bike themselves. So it's really very handy as a passenger. You pass there and you can, okay, I have to do that and that, and I've started up. Digital integration, it's another challenge. In Leuven, we are not here to have like a Leuven app where all mobility services are integrated. We are actually hoping that on the Flemish level, it will be organized like that. And then I think that's the last one. The big challenge is, okay, now we have these eHUBs deployed, but now they still have to be used much more, because I showed you the figures and they are not that satisfying yet. So we have to communicate, we have to nudge much more, and therefore I really believe that behavioral scientists can really help to change that behavior. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Hilke. Very interesting also as a user of the eHUBs to hear the story from Leuven. Any questions? Yes.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Wonderful to see that you have parcel lockers on there. I'm a freight urban planner, and so I'm wondering, have you considered making an eHUB with cargo cycles that are exclusively for businesses, so that we can move some goods delivery from truck or van to cargo hub, instead of, you know, only for residents as well?
That's something that we are actually thinking about. It's all about urban logistics, and I have to say that there's still some challenges to overrun there, to match everything which is just passenger mobility with urban mobility, freight mobility. I have to say that in the next, so we are tendering now for the cargo bikes, and there we would give more points to providers who have a range of bikes also for transports of goods. So we might challenge and we might experience more in the future, but it's really a good advice. Thank you. Yeah.
They are doing experiment now, not within the eHUBS project, at the Haarlemmerstraat in Amsterdam, where they are doing this with the cargo bike. Cargo. Yeah. So maybe it is something you can look into.
There were some more hands. Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. My name is Martin Wassmann of Design Studio Gateways here in Amsterdam. I was wondering, could you measure a higher frequency of users at the locations that you implemented these lockers in, or was there no difference?
That's some of the data that we still have to analyze. It's something that we still Unfortunately, we don't have that much data yet. With the lockers we started last November, we've got all kind of data of the usage of the lockers of each of the locations, and we still have to cross it with the data of the usage of the mobility services. Yeah, something which is on the to-do list. Thank you for the advice. Yeah.
One more question.
Hi, Hilke. Thank you for a brilliant presentation. My question is about the hubs that you had in the centre versus those in the suburbs. Was there a difference in usage between the two kind of locations?
It's quite a general answer, but there is a difference in usage, but it's mostly related to its population density. I don't know if you remember, but at the eastern sides, that's also sub-municipalities, but it's really as densely populated as in the center, and the usage there it's even higher than in the center. Yeah, it's densely, it's population density, and it's also I think the profile of the citizens there, but also there we're a little bit in lack of data. I think what we heard this morning, it would be so interesting to have much more data of who is now the user of that cargo bike and of that e-bike, but unfortunately we don't know that. Thank you.
Thank you, Hilke. So we're moving on to the third and last presentation for this morning session, where we'll be hearing of the city of Kempten and what has been going on there. Nina, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. My name is Nina Kriekisch from the city of Kempten. I'm one of the project managers for the eHUBS project. First, I want to give you a little bit of an overview of the city. We are the southernmost outpost of the project. We are located on the edge of the Alps. The city has a population of 70,000. 1,100 is the population density. Yeah, don't go down all the numbers. What is important is that we have rather a hilly topography, so this is a bit different than the cities here. People like e-vehicles there, so that was a good start for us. And another point is that we do not have much experience with shared mobility. So we have had, before the project, we had one car sharing company with 12 cars. They all were with normal engines, so no e-cars. And it is a car city, so people love their cars there. It is a small city, but a lot of people from the outsides are dependent on the city, and everybody comes with their cars. Just to give you an impression, we just recently had our first green line opened, where there's one line it's only like a few hundred meters long, where only buses and bikes can go, and everybody is complaining about that it makes it so much more inconvenient for the cars, and we hardly get any positive feedback, so just so that you know where we're coming from. So when we joined the project, the plan was, so we're also the smallest player here in the project, to have a station where there's 2 e-bikes. We wanted 12 cargo bikes and 12 e-bikes. We did a top-down approach, and we thought the e-cargo bikes would be good in the outskirt neighborhoods, far away from bus stations or supermarkets or something, so that the likelihood that people would use it to get to the supermarket or to the local market in the inner city, which is 2 times a week, that they would use it for that purposes. And the e-bikes were thought to be for tourists, so we wanted to have them next to the tourist information and next to the train station, and we wanted to have like a program where you can then get like a map, depending on what you're interested in. We have like a nice river tour that you can do, or we have some sightseeing that you can do, and so we wanted to give the people tours like sightseeing or nature or something like that to use the bikes for. So that was the plan. So where we're at now is that we have 2 stations operating with 2 e-cargo bikes, so 2 each, so 4 in total. And on one of the stations, there are also 2 e-cars. We are waiting for funding for 3 solar boxes as charging stations for additional 3 stations with 2 e-cargo bikes each. And we are awaiting start of construction for another 2 stations for 2 e-cargo bikes each. The problem is, I will come to that a little bit later, that it's really an old city and we have small streets and not much space. So finding a space where the people can actually handle the bikes. Most of them are not really used to handle bigger bikes like the cargo bikes, and so they need space without immediately going into traffic or without restricting the pedestrians. That was quite a challenge. And then the next thing is to find the logistics for the electricity, so that you have an easy possibility to get electricity to the stations. A surprising thing is that we now are preparing for one station with 2 more e-cars, so that's something we didn't plan, but the car rentals are going very well, so we want to have more of those. In case you're wondering where the 12 normal e-bikes are going, due to the pandemic, we had to cut the funding and therefore, or the budget, and therefore we had to put that on the holding line with the e-bikes. So here you can see a little bit what we have. So on the left you see the bikes, so it says rent me on the sides of the bikes. The left side is one station, so you can't really see the stations in the background, so they're really just like 2 poles where the bikes can slide in. And on the right side you see this station is not built during the eHUBS project. That bike box was already there, and we just used it to place the e-bikes there, and in the background you can see the 2 e-cars. We called them Mobilpunkte, just because another city in Germany chose that already and they were happy for us to use it, and we thought, yeah, a bit of recognition wouldn't do any harm. Our numbers are not really comparable with the numbers that you just saw in Leuven. Our fleet is a lot smaller as well, and we also have a winter where you cannot really ride your bike, so we have snow and ice, and the winter service is more focusing on the streets, as I said, car city, and not so much on the bike paths. So there are a few months during the year where you can't really use a bike comfortably. But we are still quite proud that it is used. We're just at the very beginning. And as I said, the car company is really happy with the usage and want to continue and expand the services. So just to give you an overview of our providers, the e-cargo bikes, we're working with Sego. This is a new provider from Germany. It was a startup when we first talked to them, and we lease the bikes and pay for full service. So we fully subsidize the services they provide. We get the earnings, and if the earnings exceed what we pay Sego, then we share the earnings. We haven't reached that point yet. So you use it, so Sego comes with its own app, and they service the app, and they have the customer service and everything, so we don't have to deal with anything. We just give the money to do everything. For the e-cars, we work with a local car dealer, the Renault dealer in our city. He's very into sustainability and into the e-car movement. And so he approached us to do that. We did, of course, do a tender and everything, but there weren't many other providers willing to come. So again, we pay them, but here we have the deal that all the council workers have a contingent of 30 hours a month, where they can use the cars for free as well. And this system works with the Flingster app and doesn't have its own app. So our future plans is, as I said already, that we will have at least 1 more station with e-cars. We are actually talking about having another one in the city, so in a total of 3 stations, hopefully. And we will extend the cargo fleet if it proves to be successful. And then in the long term, we really would like to have the e-bikes for the tourists as well. So now I come to the important questions. that we started with. So the first one is who will use the vehicles. Hilke, you already mentioned a few of these things as well. Like, you have to be flexible always. Like, you decide on something, but as we were really new, we also changed our minds in some points. But one of the questions that is really important in the beginning is, who do I build these eHUBs for? Or at least that it was for us. So we decided to do it for the citizens to go and do their chores. And then, what sort of vehicles do these people need? In Kempten, a lot of people have bikes and cars and everything, but so cargo bikes are quite a new thing, and they're quite handy. You can chuck all your stuff in. So we decided to try that out, just in the hope that the curiosity of the people will also start the initiative that they want to try it out, and then they're maybe happy with it and use it. And then the next question is, what system are you going to use? There's the one free-floating station-based, and then you can have from A to A or from A to B, so round trip or giving it back in a different way. So that as far as we know, the free-floating is the most user-friendly, but you experience the most vandalism. And the station-based is the one which is most inconvenient for the users, but is also safer for the vehicles and also cheaper for us. If we would have chosen a free-floating system, then we would have to pay a lot more for all the services, because bikes have to be transported to stations again. And the same is when you use from A to B, so that you have always bikes on every station. Then the next is, where will the vehicles be placed? And that is where you really have to be flexible because of the infrastructure. So we had so many different points where we wanted it to be, and it turned out that we can't get electricity conveniently there, because the thing is as well, it is a trial here, and so if we wanted the stations to be really minimal, so that if it doesn't work, we can move it to another place. So that it doesn't involve a lot of new construction. So we had a lot of going back and forth about the location, and then the next point is already the infrastructure that you need, that you know how to get the electricity, but also what I mentioned before, the space to put the bikes in and out of the stations, that people are safe when they do that, and that where I come from, that the winter service can reach and easily clean the area. And then another point which we had a lot of problems with was finding a service provider. Nobody really wanted to come to Kempten, because we didn't want an awful lot of bikes, because we wanted to try it out first. So everybody was like, well, we come with such and such amount of bikes, and these are the bikes we have. You take it or leave it. And in most of the cases, it really wasn't suitable for us. And so with Seago, it was really good, because they were a startup company and they wanted to grow with us. So we had discussions with them, and we were really flexible, and they were really flexible, and it worked out quite nicely. And then there's the business model, where which is an important point. Like, as I said, we subsidize it fully, at least with the e-cargo bikes. And that's something very important. Like, what role does the city want to play? There was discussion whether the city council does all the services and looking after the bikes, but you have to actually hire people to do that. You need at least 2 people working on that, and you have to have the capacity or the money to do that. So you have to discuss that as well. And then another question is, what partners to include? So we included housing development companies, because we found out that the best place to put it is on the property of the housing development companies. So you have to make contracts with them and discuss it with them. And so maybe also a good thing is like going to universities or companies, having it on their properties. because they often have car parks where you maybe can get one slot. And then another one is the promotion of the service, which is, as we heard before, is sometimes very difficult to change the behavior of the people. And as I said before, people are used to using their cars where I come from, so we're still working on the best campaign to do that. And then lastly, the important considerations for us was to get an overall political decision really early in the process and be aware that initial steps might need additional political decisions. So for the tenders that we wrote, we had to get additional decisions for each tender, and that takes time because the council isn't meeting every month. And then, as I said before, the suitable service provider was a big issue for us, which took us a long time. And then building a network with all the people that are involved and meet a lot of times and communicate. So with the partners like the housing development people, like also the different people from the community, like city development, civil engineering, climate protection, and the public relations people, so that you all work together smoothly and everybody knows exactly where everybody else is. And as I said, think about what partners you can put on board early, like housing developers, universities, or companies, or neighborhood initiatives would be one as well. And that's all.
Thank you so much, Nina. Any questions?
Do you have any idea if people actually who are using the cargo bikes, then if anybody got rid of a car, for example, like what is the impact you're reaching with the cargo bikes you have now?
I think at this stage that we are now, there's no impact. So that for us, it's just a really new concept in using that, and also because we don't have a very good public transport system. So maybe when we have more bikes or more stations with more bikes, then we can see if people are deciding to get rid of a car. But at the moment, where we are now, there is no impact in this way.
Hi, thanks, Nina. How are you charging for use of the cargo bikes, etc.? Is it per minute or?
There is an initial unlocking fee, and then there is every half hour. And the cars, I'm actually not sure. I think it's per hour.
Okay.
Yeah.
And can your citizens book in advance, or do they kind of pay as you go?
Good question. With the cars, I know you can reserve, so you make a reservation, so that is in advance. But I think you can with Seago, as with the e-cargo bikes, you can do that as well in the app. But I'm not 100% sure.
Hi, I'm a colleague of Hilke, but I just walked in after the presentation of Hilke, so I hope I'm not going to say something that is not in line with Hilke. I'm just wondering, you're planning in the future to provide electric bicycles specifically for tourists, as I understand correctly. What is your target group there? Or your target group is tourists, but what is the aim? How do the tourists get around now? Is it to attract extra tourists? And why specifically only tourists? That's my question. I'm also asking because in Leuven we're also a little bit struggling, I think, with looking who's the exact target group of the e-bikes. In our case, I think it's a bit different because we already have a lot of cyclists, the citizens itself. So that's where we are looking, like, who is our target group. But why specifically you want to focus on the tourists with the e-bikes?
Well, we do have quite a number of tourists in Kempten, and they often come with a car because when you come with a train, the public transport to get you around is not so good. So the thinking is that not to attract more tourists, but the tourists that come would then make the decision, oh, well, I just can rent a bike and get along there, and it's an e-bike, so I don't have to do an awful lot because, as I said, it's a bit hilly. And because we offer the tours then as well, where they can have the map, they download it or they have it in paper, that then they change from using their car to coming with the train and then using the bike to get around.
One final question.
Hi, my name is Grațian and I'm coming from Romania. And in Romania, all the cities are like car-driven cities. And I see Kempten is also has this type of approach. My question is, because the project was top-down, how you want to stimulate the citizens from Kempten to embrace this type of new vision of alternative transport? Do you have any data, any sociological, anthropological question or research regarding how the citizens will embrace this type of mobility? Thank you.
So there are some universities that have data on how to change behavior in this. So I can always ask there, get the data there. But for us, it's like, as we put it, in a neighborhood, the plan is that once the stations are all installed, we go around the neighborhoods and make like, just put a Barbie in a box of beer there, have the bikes there, and then just talk to the people. Like we have flyers and we put posters on, but just like have like, I don't know, a neighborhood Barbie, and then talk to the people and tell them how great it is. And that would be like one of the first steps. And also the local produce market is really big in Kempten, so we want to have a few Saturdays there where we stand there and introduce the system to the people that are there, because these are a target group, people that go to the market, they come from the outskirts, so that they maybe next weekend use the cargo bike to go to the market and not their car.
I suggest any further questions are taken to the lunch break, because we are already 10 minutes late. We also started 10 minutes late, but I won't keep you from having lunch anymore. If you're also interested in the second round, so the other 3 cities, Dreux, Manchester and Nijmegen, please come back after lunch to this same room, and then we'll share their stories with you. So please join me in thanking the 3 speakers, and then we'll see you later on.